It's actually the wrong song. Sorry, guys. Still a fun song, though. All right, we're back right now. Just had to get a little sip of water there. We got with us Adam tonight. I'm very excited to have him. He's a good buddy of mine, and we hit it off so well about apologetics and evangelism. We listened to the same guys, Dr. Greg Bahnsen, who is I think a genius when it comes to explaining apologetics. You know, we're still on that particular topic, and one of the things he said that I thought was fascinating, and this is for you Christians out there. He says you got to look at apologetics not as a system, or evangelism not as a system, not a script you memorize. And I'm going to talk about this for a few minutes, Adam, because I think he's making a fantastic point here. He says, imagine yourself, you're in a room with a gun, with a guy pointing a gun at you. Now, he's going to fire his intellectual bullets. You're not going to be able to escape. All the walls are closed in. There's no windows, no doors, no way to escape. And the only one of two choices can happen here. You could either learn how to dodge bullets, or you can learn to take the gun away. And I think when he said that, he's assuming he'll teach us how to take the gun away, not to try to dance around bullets, because you never know what's going to happen there. I think that's fascinating, because I think what Dr. Greg Bahnsen was pretty known for doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, is he's teaching us when we evangelize. If you want to learn how to evangelize, learn how to think like a Christian. Think. Too many people want to memorize scripts, and they think if they go with a little cue card drive-by evangelism program that they're gonna, hey, they did their job anyway. But tell me why you don't necessarily agree with that, Adam.
Oh, well, I mean, absolutely. Bahnsen, like you said, he's a master. He's a genius. he passed away all too soon and early in, I think, his late 40s, sometime in the late 1990s. But he did leave us such a strong approach, like the gun analogy. Yeah, I don't want to have to learn how to dodge bullets. I don't want to run from somebody who's firing at me as if that's going to last. I want to learn how to walk over and take that gun. And what Bahnsen's getting at, and what we aim to do, is to answer the fool according to his folly.
Amen.
And look, Chad, you and I both know, and we ought to say right here and now, you and I are both fools apart from Christ. And in all too many ways, we're probably still fools right now as we speak. We're nobody special. What we have that the atheist doesn't have, that the agnostic doesn't have, that the non-Christian doesn't have, what we have is the mind of Christ. We have the mind of the one who rose from the dead. We're able to see through to the foundation principles of the universe and build reality in the way that God constructed it when we're doing our argument. And when it comes down to it, we may not argue perfectly, and somebody may think that they still can hold on to their false ideas. But the things that we represent, those principles that God has built into the universe that point to Him, that 1,000,000% proof of His existence, that's what we represent. That's what we point to when we argue.
Amen. And I think that's so important. I was having a discussion with a friend, and we were talking about the day and age in which we live. And actually, Pastor Matt from our church here was just kind of touching up on a little bit. We don't live in that day and age anymore where, actually, it could have been a missionary that was. That it was actually, we had a missionary conference just recently at our church, Webster Bible Church. By the way, you go to websterbiblechurch.org and check us out there. Listen to all the sermons our pastors preach. Anyway, one of the guests came in, and we're talking about we need to be more of we've turned more into an Acts 17 preaching. Now, let me explain what that is. when Paul, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, Acts 17 is when Paul goes to Athens, correct?
Right.
Right. So what does that mean? Look, even back then, when Paul walked into a situation, now everybody knows who Apostle Paul is. He went into Athens. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Adam, but Athens was the philosophical and argumentative capital of the world. I mean, Athens at that time did nothing but argue. They were filling in their human wisdom versus religion versus other religions. And what do you think, Adam? And I'm just out of curiosity. So here's Apostle Paul. He walks into the middle of Athens. He stands on a stage and says, "Okay, everybody, I'm going to talk. I want every one of you to be quiet." Yeah, no arguing because I can't. You know, I don't think he did that. I think he walked into Athens. He saw the inscriptions on their idols and their statues, and he addressed their folly. And then he brought it about their attention, therefore identifying, clarifying, and proclaim, which is something I might teach here in a second hour, how to effectively evangelize the people. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So even Apostle Paul made arguments, but you know nobody would condemn Apostle Paul for doing that.
Absolutely. You know what, Chad? It's funny that you bring up Athens because that first century world in Athens, Greece, was the ancient equivalent of our YouTube comments. It was just an absolute hodgepodge of people coming in and speaking their minds and giving all the half-cocked philosophies that were coming from all over the world. They all converged together in Athens, and there was this Jewish man, and the Jews were never all that respected outside of their own culture. You know, so here comes this Jewish scholar, Paul, and he walks into Athens. Of course they're going to give him a chance to speak because they're just bored when nobody's speaking. They want some action. They want some arguments. They want some new philosophies. They want to hear something new. So sure, go ahead and talk. And Paul begins to speak, and he quotes some of their poets, and he speaks their language. And so they're interested. They're listening, and they listen to him talk about Jesus, and it all sounds fine, and they're scratching their chins. But when Paul brought up the fact that Jesus, who was God in the flesh, was resurrected from the dead in the flesh, they couldn't hear it any longer. Because in that Greek culture, in their philosophy, the flesh, the body, everything made of atoms and molecules was evil and was to be escaped from. And so they couldn't hear the talk of the resurrection because they had faulty presuppositions. They had wrong ideas about the body in the first place. And Paul knew that was right what he had to aim for. He had to dig up underneath those roots and uproot the bad tree in order to plant the fresh seed. And I think that's what we aim to do today.
You know, we talked a lot about what we can do when we are evangelizing. We could legitimately make an argument, and we're called to do that. But let's talk about some of the things we shouldn't do, because I think the people who do bring this kind of thing up do have a legitimate concern, don't they, Adam? They don't want us to get into senseless arguments. Tell me a little bit about that. What would be a couple good reasons not to evangelize to somebody?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jesus himself told his apostles not to cast the pearls before swine.
What does that mean? What does that mean to not cast pearls before a swine?
Absolutely. I think any of us who have ever tried to share Christ and defend the Christian faith with people who don't believe it have run into some swine. And that would be the person who simply refuses to allow us, the Christian, to define our own terms, to help them to understand where we're coming from. They refuse to listen to what we actually believe and would just rather push their own ideas of our religion on us, and then force us to defend something that we don't believe, or otherwise known as a straw man. If you get somebody that's into that, they're probably afraid of actually allowing the discussion and the argument to be conducted with respect and honesty, because they might not feel ready to actually defend their own ideas, so they turn to ad hominem and attack you and your character, or they, pull out a straw man. And that would be a swine. That would be a case where you give it a shot, you try to correct, you try to gently persuade them to change their debating tactic. And if they won't listen, you have to dust off your hands and go to the next person.
Amen. Well, that is a very fascinating. Hey, if you want to talk to Adam tonight, it is area code 646-595-3275. That's 646-595-3275. Call in. This is $1,000,000% Radio with the CC Radio Network. And we're just pleased to be here today giving you information. And if you're a Christian listening tonight, we want nothing more than to edify and build you up. Believe me, no discouraging here. It might be challenging. We might be challenging. And me and Justin, and by the way, are teachers. So I think we're just challenging by nature, really. Just ask my wife. She thinks I'm challenging. That's a bad joke. Okay, I'm just kidding. All right, so we're going to move forward here, and we're going to talk a little bit about the debate. Now, if you're listening out there and you have a good reason why you think science disproves God, please call now. The number is 646-595-3275. If you believe that science disproves God, are you an evolutionist? Are you somebody who can defend that? We would love to talk to you. If you remember last time we had Kent Hovind with us, made a wonderful argument against evolution, talked a lot about creationism, and what a fascinating show that was. Did you catch that, Justin? He was on and just gave everybody a whirlwind of information. I mean, your mind just explodes every time you listen to Kent Hovind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty exciting. Well, let's dive into this topic here because... man, we're already 30 minutes. You believe we're already 30 minutes into this thing? Justin, I should call you Adam. See, I told you I wasn't going to do that. Does science prove God's existence?
Well, very simply put, I'd say science does not prove God's existence. God, on the other hand, proves the validity of science.
Why don't you explain that for the audience so they really get this? This is, I think, this makes a vital challenge for most people who believe that science does not prove God's existence. What do you mean that God proves science?
Oh, well, this is what I mentioned earlier, talking about foundations, the foundations of reality. Science is a very powerful tool of discovery. It's a method that we use by utilizing our human reasoning, our ability to sort out things that are real and true, and to measure things and quantify things in our universe, and to draw conclusions from inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning, all that means is I take a series of data. I take a series of experiments, and I look at what happened, and I draw a bigger conclusion or a principle from that, which we call science. If we 1,000 times go up on top of a tall building and drop a lacrosse ball off that building, and every single time it falls at the same exact rate, what we do inductively is conclude the law of gravity. We conclude the speed of gravity because it was observed. That's what science is. It's observing. It's seeing things happen and noting the connection.
You said a very interesting. You said a very interesting word. Let me stop you right there because you said an interesting word there. You said induction. What is induction so our audience understands what that is?
Yeah, I might not have given it a good definition. It's a little bit tricky, but all it basically